Hi, this is Chris
Carol.
and we're doing Coffee Conversations with Chris and Carol, or Carol and Chris, courtesy of Nine Flags Coffee Roasters at 1504 North Street, Nacogdoches, Texas, and the zip code is?
95964.
I think that's
I
correct.
think, yeah, I think that's
I
right.
think that's correct. You know what I'd like you to do?
What?
I would like you to pull that cap back just a bit so I can see those eyes.
Oh,
of yours.
you get away from me. Okay.
You said that you wanted to talk about something
Yes, I do. Okay, let me find it. So, this is something that caught my attention that I have major beef with in general in the world here.
today. We're going to air your grievances.
It's a grievance. It's a major grievance. Okay, so this was a post on.
This is a time that we share with people and try and give them an
I'm sure-
uplifting time, and we're going to share
Listen,
your grievances.
I'm sure that there's people that will agree and some that will disagree with this thought process.
Well, please.
Okay.
Enlighten us.
So I read this yesterday evening on Facebook and I went, wait a minute, what? No. If you have a credit card and a kid, add your kid as an authorized user and pay the bill on time. By the time that kid hits 18, boom, 800 plus credit score for them to succeed in this world. Schools ain't teaching this. It's up to us. What?
What is the grievance?
The grievance is several things. First of all,
It is the parents'
I
responsibility.
I have always carried a 750 plus credit score.
Not bad.
Why is that? Because I know how to manage it. And I started, 22. I had a credit card with a $200 limit. It was like that for like 5 years before they raised it.
Hey, all you college students out there, if you need some consulting advice, please call Carol. Just come down to Nine Flags Coffee Roasters at 1504 North Street, and she'll not only give you a good cup of coffee, but she'll give you some of the best advice for upping your credit score.
Okay, so the credit score isn't necessarily the thing. Why is it that we as parents are expected to softly pave the way for our kids to be successful not in their own right?
That's a good question.
It bugs me so much because this sort of stuff, this is what handicaps adults. It's, I want my thing now. Let me go I can go buy a sports car. Financing is another problem. I can have what I want when I want it, as long as I can kind of maybe prove that I can afford to pay for it.
Can you tell that we have touched on a clear nerve on Carol?
Huge nerve.
Let me bring this over into today's events. They were talking about young people are more positively inclined towards socialism today, and they said one of the reasons is that they don't have the things that older people have. Well, of course they don't.
No, because you
they
have to
haven't had
work
the
for
time.
30 to 40 years to get there. You don't get to move into the house that your parents live in currently when you're 20.
They are jealous of what the older rich people have, like you.
Oh, yeah, the older rich people. Oh, yes. That's an accurate description.
They look at what you have and they say, why don't I have it? I am jealous. So when they come along and someone says, free stuff, free college education, free medical care, free jobs, free monthly income, they're all about it. But when they start to get older and they start paying the taxes and they start having to live on their own without mommy and daddy, now they may be less inclined to embrace socialism at that time.
How about this? If you want something or you want to live a certain way, you set reasonable goals and you manage your money appropriately to make those goals. You put in the hard work. Nobody's going to walk up to you and hand you success.
When did you first start getting this idea of work ethic and saving?
I started working in a job that did not pay.
You're doing a lot of this finger pointing
At 14.
today. She is very passionate about this. At 14.
At 14, my parents, when I was 11, started paying for riding lessons for me with a friend, and they said, we're never buying you a horse, so just forget it. And I said, okay, and I knew they meant it. We'll pay for the lessons, we'll pay for some shows. If you want to do anything else, you need to go out and find the opportunity.
Do you remember Seinfeld and the pony?
Oh, I just saw that episode. Yeah, I just saw the episode. His Polish aunt. We all had ponies. He was the pride of Krakow. He was a beautiful pony.
So
what I did
At
was
14.
I had a neighbor who also had a horse that she boarded at the stable that I took lessons at. And I ended up talking to her one day, and she was moving her horse to another barn, and she said, well, I know they have a work program out there for girls that want to ride. So I started going with her, and I cleaned stalls, I cleaned the hallways, we cleaned the pastures, we groomed horses, we bathed horses, we fed horses, we watered them, we did everything. It was all on a point system, and you collected your points, and then you could turn them in for riding lessons. Or if you wanted to go to a horse show, that would pay your trainer fee. So I started doing that until I got a job. I did an 18-month apprenticeship at the other stable that I rode at, and then I started teaching riding lessons when I was 17.
So at 17, you started getting money for your experience
And
sweat and toil.
yeah, and a lot of the experience that I got was taking lessons at that other stable. Then I got another job, so I was working 2 jobs in high school, and sometimes I would go to the first one
Let's
and then go to the second one.
let's back up. People today want to get out of college, and if I'm wrong, correct me. Many people want to get out of college and get an administrative job, a boss's job. They don't want to start from the bottom.
Well, you're not going to be a very good boss if you don't have enough experience.
And that is because you cannot empathize, you do not understand what the people under you are doing.
Yeah, and there's also you have to develop, I don't want to say a leadership style. You have to learn how to be a leader, even if you're inclined towards leadership. You have to understand people, you have to understand human nature, you have to understand what motivates them, and also to kind of have a fair backbone. Some people step into leadership and they're overbearing and they're mean, and they don't get the best out of their people because it's, well, I'm just gonna come down on them. And then you have the other type that is, they haven't built the confidence to direct people and correct them when necessary.
Were you a good student?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Good grades?
Yeah.
What
It was
about
it was expected at my house.
And your behavior?
Yeah.
What were your favorite subjects?
History and English. I like science too. Math, I was not.
So you should be well versed in language.
I am versed enough in language.
Juxtaposition. What does that mean?
Uh,
We're going to find out. We're testing her right now.
Juxtaposition. It's not an opposing viewpoint, but it's contrasting, I think. Is that correct?
This girl gets an A.
I know about A's. I got them.
Take two things that are contrasting, put them together,
Yeah.
so they actually complement or play off each other.
Yeah, I think that would be play off of each other.
So an example would be you're at a funeral and somebody is telling a joke.
Yes.
Grief versus humor.
I feel like this happened in Seinfeld. There's a few funeral episodes.
Well,
Anyways.
as you mentioned that, I'm thinking of when George was engaged to be married
Oh
and
my
his
goodness.
wife died from being poisoned by the glue on the
Envelope glue.
sheep on
Dear. Wasn't there an episode where did he burn down the cabin,
Yes,
or was that Kramer? That was from the
George.
It was George.
It was George.
And then she died.
So why were these subjects, English, history, why were you interested in those?
My parents both have always really been into history. and reading as well. My mom worked at a library.
My
So-
mother was a teacher.
So it was, I just feel like it was an extension of what my parents did. They encouraged a lot of reading and a lot of finding information. So my dad would actually assign outside of school, if there was a current event happening, whatever that might be, we were assigned a report outside of school to find out more about what was happening in the world. And then we had to present the information that we found to the rest of the family.
I remember in school I took a class called business law, and we followed the Candy Mosler case. No one remembers this, but
Was it before 1980?
Again-
Oh, that's right.
again.
When you were in school.
You- you poor thing.
I wasn't there because I wasn't born yet.
This was in the mid-60s, mind you. And Candy Mosler was the wife of a Mr. Mosler who owned Mosler Safe Company.
Mm,
I believe it was based out of Houston.
mhm.
And they also lived in Miami.
Okay.
She had him killed.
Oh, whoa.
So, we
Why?
Denario,
Oh,
money.
no way, man.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So we followed that when I was in school. What were your? We want to know all about you. We want to know
Oh.
what makes Carol.
Oh.
So, what makes a good student? You were a good student, so you can just tell us what it takes.
It's there has to just be a reasonable level of dedication to all your subjects, even if you don't like them. I did not like math. I had convinced myself I was not good at math, but I still was able to, although it was difficult for me, I still was able to get decent grades in math. So you might have to put in extra time. Also, my parents, during the school week, we didn't have freedom to come and go. We came home. We might go out with our friends for a little while, but
Your activities were tightly regulated.
yeah. So what we were allowed to do was hold a job, and at that time, it was there wasn't, the labor laws were a little different. You could work till 10 p.m. as a minor if that's what it required. The job, I worked at a yogurt shop, and it closed at 9, and we were out by 9:30. So I would go in and work. I think I'd go in at like 4 or 5 and work to 9:30, something like that. Anyways, but we could do that. It was okay to work. I had my volunteer gig with the riding stable, and I did that until I graduated high school, although I had already started teaching at the other stable. So I continued to work there twice a week after school, so we could go do those types of things. But we were required to most part be home for dinner. It was usually about 6 o'clock was turn-in time for social events.
This is almost a different time and culture than what a lot of people today, students.
I'll tell you what it did.
experience.
I'll tell you what it did for me, because
tell me.
It established a habit of time frames for this is what I need to do now. So I always had to, there was no leaving school and just going and doing what I wanted. It was, I got home, my mother picked us up from school until...
Any regrets?
No.
Any regrets in your childhood?
I think when I was younger, I definitely kind of had a chip on my shoulder about not being allowed to do anything, which wasn't true. I just needed permission. And if my parents said, okay, you've got too much going on in this area, you're not going out this week, then I just had to do what they said.
This comes back to a thing maybe of maturing and students pushing against the boundaries.
Yeah.
And I likened this when my children were younger. I likened this to a lion that had lion whelps, cubs that were growing up. And there came a time when the lion cub thought that they were big enough to carry on, and they would challenge the old man. And
You don't want to challenge that old man's strength.
well, they finally challenged until they went off on their own to find out their place. As far as this relates to students, it is our failures and our, I don't know that pushing the boundaries is it, but knowing the boundaries and wanting to expand where you're growing in your household is not big enough for you. And now you have to get out. And the natural proclivity that nature provides is that you get tired of living under your parents' rules and you move out. Now, the problem about that is you're going to find out there's a lot of things you can't do that you thought you could do, and you used to get arrested and have to pay for these things. Today, I don't think you get penalized for these things. You just tapped on the shoulder and said, don't do that again.
Oh yeah, there
So-
is some of that. Well, I don't. We had a pretty peaceable household. My older brother, definitely pushed back a little more against. I wouldn't say he directly pushed back against my parents. He would just, like, on the weekend, his curfew was later than mine on the weekend, which I disagree with. First of all, I think everybody should have the same curfew, boy or girl. He just wouldn't come home till he felt like coming home. So he was
That's a problem.
He would be the big forgiveness type instead of.
How did that work?
It would just get him grounded, and he perpetually was on a rotation of restriction. 3 weeks on,
When
1
did
or
you-
2 weeks off.
When did you get a car?
I got a car when I was 17. I was not allowed to get my license. My parents planned it this way. I had my permit for a year. I got my license a week before I graduated.
When did you first start driving?
I was 16 when I got my permit, and I drove for a year with the permit, year and a half. My dad said, "I'll let you take your test when I say you can take your test."
Would you like to know about one of the first times I drove?
You're probably like 9.
I was
with a cigarette hanging out.
I
your
was
mouth.
11 years old,
See,
and
this is why we can't have nice things.
I was in the hospital when I almost cut my trigger finger off due to an accident that kids do. And I met this man. His name was Ed Walters, and he was an alcoholic Cherokee Indian who was a truck driver. And
Oh my goodness. I love
we
this story
became
already.
fast friends. And I gave him my address and said, "Come see me." And he did.
You're 11.
It happened to be, now this guy's probably 35 years
Yeah.
old. It happened to be, he was interested in me, but he's more interested in my mother.
Oh, I knew it.
You knew it was coming. But I hadn't seen him for a while. And all of a sudden, one day, I was playing out in the road at age 11. This Cadillac comes around and stops in front of me, a black 59 Cadillac with the twin bullet tail lights, the best Cadillac design they ever had. It's Ed Walters. "Hi, how are you?" "Hey, I'm fine. I hadn't seen you in a while." "Nice car." "Yeah, you like it?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Where's your mother?" I said, "She's inside." He said, "Why don't you take her around the block?"
Just take the car around the block.
He got out. I jumped in the car. My feet could barely touch the pedals. And
How'd you do?
I did well. Didn't scrape up any tin. The paint was still good. And I like to embellish this because it didn't happen, but it should have happened. I should have come back with the radio blaring with the song, "Son, you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't quit driving that hot rod Lincoln."
I cannot believe that happened. I mean, I can believe
It did happen. It did happen.
I am not leaving an 11-year-old with anything like that.
Well, we did a lot of things when we were 11 that we probably shouldn't have been
I
doing.
know. I've heard quite a few stories from my relatives.
It was a better time to grow up because you could learn by experience in your failures. And let me tell you, if we leave this podcast with any other thought, I want you to know you learn through your failures. So get out there, try, and do that.
Well, I've always had my motto is failing my way to success.
Yeah.
Because this goes back to this whole credit thing. It's do not be terrified of if you're raising your children to be resilient and reasonable, to have somewhat of a work ethic, they're probably going to do fine. But if you're just going to pad the way,
Millionaires have been millionaires several times over. In other words, they became millionaires. They lost it all.
money,
They went back.
You make mistakes. You don't have to fall on your sword. It's what I think is interesting is when you hear somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be a younger person. You hear this from my peer group a lot, which I just don't know what to do. And walking around like somebody else is supposed to solve their problem. And, and for me, it's the money thing. Well, I just don't know what to do. Well, you bought a lot of crap. Maybe stop buying crap and start paying your bills, or if you need a new car, instead of complaining about it and looking around thinking how unfair it is that, so-and-so up the road who's probably handling their money correctly doesn't have this problem. Why don't you come up with a plan and start solving things? I just don't want to hear it anymore from people about not having what other people have.
If you notice, when she came in, she was a little wound up. So
I was. This topic in particular, because I know we're in slightly different generations, not by much, just a little bit. But
she looks very good for 78.
That's
doesn't
true. That's true. A lot of night cream.
A lot of night cream. Hey,
once again, back to the routines. Do the night cream, and here you are.
Well, we are getting close to be out of time. This is what happens. The time goes by so fast when you're so angry.
I'm not angry. I just
always remember. The angry people never know they're angry.
I'm not angry.
So,
it's frustrating.
As we bid you a good day from Nine Flags Coffee Roasters, have a good day. And we're done.
Is that a York peppermint patty that you're eating there?
Would you like to share?
No, thanks.
Then why was that a...
Do you know what I had for breakfast?
Let me...
I could have kept going, but somebody cut me short.
Okay, well, just keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going.
8 minutes.
We have 8 minutes.
Wow.
I am sorry.
My train of thought has been derailed.
Listen, let's get back to this. We have more time. I'm sorry, I didn't see what time we started, but as she started this conversation, is that a peppermint patty? Of course it's a peppermint patty. And I'm almost done with. Let me tell you about peppermint patties.
They're delicious.
Peppermint patties goes with coffee.
They do. Yes, they do. Yeah.
And if you notice, when we quit, we didn't curse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't curse. I try not to. It's not a good look, as I've decided. So, okay, this jealousy thing that you were talking about. Jealousy over people's stuff.
Oh, yes.
Just like the car, I got to go get I got to have a new car. Well, do you need a new car? Well, I can go finance a car. You don't have the money for the car, but I can go
steal a car.
Get one from the dealership, find a good deal,
steal a car,
pay for it monthly, and just it's the inability to delay gratification.
This is an instant gratification. I want when I want.
It's a problem. It creates money problems for people.
When I came to Nacogdoches, we befriended someone that lived in the trailer park where we lived, and their little boy, which was about 5 or 6, was having a birthday party. So we came over and we brought a present, and we got there, and before anything, he grabbed that present and started ripping all the stuff up. And she said, "Don't you want to? You should thank these people for the present." And he said, and I think this is indicative of what you're talking about. He said, I don't care about that. All I care about is this.
Yeah.
And we thought, little brat.
Yeah. How about I take that present back and
Now-
you got nothing?
If that's indicative of people today, I think I already called them what they are, little brat.
Okay, so what about the misconception of wants versus needs?
There are very few needs that aren't being met. I know that we talk about people that are hungry. There are very few people that are hungry today because they cannot get something to eat. There is all kinds of places here that you can get something to eat. We have more Christian-based, faith-based ministries that attend to people's needs, but not to wants.
Right. Well, the you hear it all the time. Oh, well, I need to replace such and such, whatever item that is. Is it that you need to replace it?
My phone,
or,
my stereo.
or you want to replace it? No, that's not inaccurate. And you hear these conversations, and I know a multitude of people that make good money and they have nothing to show for it because, and then when they have an emergency, they don't have any. There's no extra money because it's all spent all the time getting, oh, well, you know, I need this. And it's like, well, do you? Or does the radio that you have in your car not work? Does it not work?
I was thinking when you talked about the wants and the needs, it reminded me of the words of a song.
Oh, okay.
And the wants and the needs of a 1 your age, Ruby, I realize. Oh, Ruby, don't take your love to town.
I've
And-
never heard this song.
You've never heard it? He's a cripple. And he says, and if I could move, I'd get my
So-
gun and put her in the ground.
So,
Oh, Ruby, don't take your love to town.
so this guy needs a cane or a walker.
He needs a gun.
Oh. Well, what he's a cripple?
He must.
Is that a
He said, and if I could move, I'd get my gun and
Oh,
put her
so
in the
you're
ground.
surmising that he is.
That's what life is about, is
Yeah,
surmising.
so I don't know the song, is all I'm saying. Is this like a ballad of this guy who's got these leg troubles?
leg troubles?
Well,
I don't know. I'm going by the words of the song. That's all I know.
well, you said he was a cripple, so I was curious if there's more info.
That was it. If I could
Okay.
move.
Okay.
If I could move. Maybe he just had leg cramps.
Leg troubles.
Like
It's a broad term.
restless leg.
Oh, that's
The
the
restless
worst.
leg syndrome.
Oh my goodness.
Let me tell you what we can do with people that have restless leg syndrome. We're trying to cure it? No. Let's
Isn't it potassium? and
let's forget about that.
magnesium?
Let's harness that, put them on a cycle, and they can generate electricity.
I
You
re-
want to talk about going green?
I really think that that's going to be more trouble than it's worth.
The Green New Deal, give them a cycle and let this restless leg keep generating electricity. Maybe we can generate enough electricity to make this country and this world and planet a little safer.
I think that they just want to sleep. That's like the bigger problem with restless leg syndrome. I feel like putting them on a bicycle is not going to help with that scenario.
It could.
Maybe a little extra exercise. I've heard that with restless leg, that if you walk or jog or something, it helps dissipate some of those symptoms. I just don't know that you could do it along at the same time that they're wanting to rest, which
Take
is
a
when
walk.
it's a problem.
Take a walk down in the crime-ridden parts of town.
A
And-
jog, a brisk walk,
Well, if you're walking,
a
you'll
walk
soon
for your
find
life.
that you need to jog and then run for your life. Yeah, that'll get rid of that restless leg. See, we've got a lot of cures that don't take a lot of money to solve the problems of the world.
I know. I'm not sure about the bicycle thing. I don't know if you're gonna get a lot of volunteers for that one.
This is not volunteer. Listen,
This is not like you're just.
if Sanders gets to be president,
Oh,
we can just
oh.
enforce this, or Bloomberg, he'll enforce it to where all the people with restless leg syndrome have to be on a bicycle generating electricity to make our world a little greener.
I don't even want to talk about Crazy Bernie
Well, if you don't want to talk about them, we're done now. We're done. So,
officially. Okay, let's clink. There
Clink.
we go.
have a good day.